Hello, thanks for tuning in. Today we are back at the Cummins 6.7 turbo diesel, and we have a new intake manifold coming in hopefully, and we're gonna get rid of this grid heater because we wiggled the grid heater bolt. It doesn't feel loose, super loose, but it doesn't feel super tight either. So everybody knows about those killer bolts that drop down. I know it's rare, but it can happen. This truck just hit 250K, so we do not want to take any risk as everything is original on the truck. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this intake horn. We'll do the grid heater probably in another video, and we're gonna compare the three intakes between each other. The stock one, this common one that's found on eBay, and then a very high-end one. So we'll get all this off, we'll get it on the bench, and we'll take a look at it. Okay, we got the intake horn off, and as you can see, our grid heater plate is actually not too bad because we did clean that last year when we replaced this intake horn, but this thing was caked up, and you'll see with the stock intake, we never cleaned that. We're gonna show how that looks. So we're gonna get the rest of this junk off with the grid heater plate. We're gonna take that off, and we're gonna compare it to the new stuff that we got. Okay, we are at a good stopping point. We got the grid heater off and everything, and that 6 fuel line. We did not remove that rear bracket like the book says. We were able to get it with a crow's foot and a wrench. And you see all the debris that falls in there. So that thing has kind of got like a bathtub shape, so it's not gonna fall into the intake manifold per se, but you need to get all that stuff out of there. Vacuum it out, clean everything out. So we're gonna clean everything out, and then we'll take a look at the new components and see if we can get it all back together. Just wanted to show you all real quick on how disgusting these intakes get. You can't even read the casting numbers over there hardly, and that's just from a little bit of scraping, no real cleaning yet. And it sucked out handfuls of carbon. And this is why the engines on these things fail, because they try to pump so much stuff on top of them when they're not designed to run like that. So clean everything out, get it all good, and get it back together so the truck runs right. Okay, the first thing we're gonna compare is the stock grid heater to this new Airboss 6.7 Glacier diesel power. This is a CNC milled piece, all one piece. I believe it's aluminum. And this is the stock grid heater. So as you can see, there's not many differences when you look at it. You have a little divot here. I don't know why. I guess we'll see when it goes back together. But you have the spot for the air intake temp sensor, obviously all the bolt mounting holes, and then the standoffs for the fuel rail, they give you little spacers that go on here, so that's not an issue. The main concern we're looking at is right here with the grid heater. And like we said, we cleaned this one up last year, and as you see, it didn't get carbon back up, which is good. But as you can see, it's a huge difference in the opening here and the restriction. I mean, this takes the entire gasket area, where this gives you partial area. And let me grab the gasket so we can show you. All right, the gasket's on there, and you can see it takes available of the entire area. The entire area of the gasket you can use. And this is a Cummins gasket. It was included with the Airboss, which is good. Now we're just gonna lay it over here and just show you how much of a restriction you're actually getting. All this extra metal in there. So all that's gone when you go and switch over to a grid heater delete. So basically, if you can see, that's where your intake manifold sits. Follow that carbon line all the way around. All that area is being choked up, and there's a step down. All that area is being choked up for less air and more buildup. So we'll flip these things over and take a look at the underside. Okay, as you can see, it's nice and CNC machined here. You see where the tooling and the swirl marks went through, but you can't feel anything. It's perfectly smooth. It's just some witness marks. But it looks pretty cool, I think. And if you see, you've got a large area that's dipped out in here for the air to go back. If you look at the stock one, you don't get that. You get some X's in there that catch all the carbon. Then you got this big grid heater that drops down and blocks the first two cylinders. So you're really starving your engine with the stock one. Now, if you live in a southern state or somewhere that doesn't drop below freezing, you can just run this, no problems. We did, in fact, get the inline grid heater with it that goes into the intake horn, and we'll show that in a second. But as you can see, this new piece, and this will go for any grid heater delete, they're all about the same. This one is just, we talked to the company, they seem like good people. We got it, we ordered everything, it was in stock, and they got it shipped out to us quick, so no issues with the company at all, good communication. But I'm pretty sure you can pick these up anywhere, eBay or whatever, but just be careful of the quality and the machining. Like I said, this looks perfect, and I believe these are all made and milled in the United States is what they told us, so we want to support the United States, so we went with these people. But yeah, that's the scoop on the grid heater and why you shouldn't really have it, because the proof is in the pudding. Look at all that carbon in there. All that is eventually and can potentially chip off and go right into your intake stream with your intake valves and down into your combustion chamber. I mean, look how thick that piece is. Let me get something to break that off to show you guys. I mean, look at that. Look at how much carbon is in there. It's just absolutely disgusting. And all that stuff is going into your engine while it's running. Especially if you're under high load, this thing will suck any type of carbon down there. So we will get the grid heater up here now to take a look at that and see how that looks. Okay, and we have the basically throttle body grid heater. These are what you would see on the 5.9s, I believe. And as you can see, it is just a grid heater, just like that, but much more efficient, much more flowing capacity through there. And there's really no possibility of the killer bolt, because if these nuts on the outside, for some reason, back out, these bolts don't have enough room to go all the way in and drop into your intake. So you would be all right. And this is a beautiful machine piece. This works with the factory Cummins grid heater line. No codes, no nothing. And again, this is by Glacier Diesel. Beautiful, beautiful CNC machine piece. And this will be going on with the intake ram. So let's get the intakes up here and check those things out. All right, here's the stock Cummins 6.7 intake. As you can see, it's not very aerodynamic. It's pretty restrictive. This is where your throttle valve would be, and that's where the grid heater takes place of this. The grid heater would bolt right there, and you would get rid of this. But as you can see, we didn't clean this out when we cleaned out the engine, when we removed this and put the other intake on. But you can absolutely see how dirty this is. And all this is going to be going into your engine. And look at that. Just chunks of it coming off. It's disgusting. So we'll compare it to the ram horn style that was on there. And we'll look at that. All that waiting to go in your engine. It's a shame that these come from the factory like that. Okay, this is a common one that's found on eBay and Amazon. I believe it's this MP boosted one. As you can see, this one gets rid of the throttle valve, so it's a little bit longer. As you can see here, though, the opening is much, much larger. Even with the dent, and a lot of the manufacturers, except for, I believe, Banks Diesel, Gale Banks makes one where he redoes the line and doesn't bend them here, but almost every manufacturer bends it right here just for ease of installation. It's a little bit of a restriction, but when you look at compared to what stock is, the difference is night and day. Let me see if I can get these things propped up. All right, we got the old dial caliper out. We're gonna measure and see, if you see that's zeroed out, we're gonna measure and see the stock opening here and what you actually get. So let's see, about 1.5 inches, just over 1.5 inches. Now, if you see when we get onto here, this is huge. So we went from 1.5 inches to 3 inches. So this intake, this cheap eBay, Amazon intake that you find, nearly doubles the volume coming out, right? So you got 1.5 and 3 right there. And that just goes to show you right there why you should get rid of the stock intake and grid heater. It is ultra restrictive. So we're gonna get the manifold up here now that we're actually gonna put on and compare all 3 of them. Okay, we got the 3 of them side by side. Stock, just an eBay one that you can pick up, eBay, Amazon, cheapy one, 80 bucks maybe. And the Glacier diesel performance one here. It is a beast. As you can see, it's got all the port fittings you would ever need down there. Spot for your intake temp sensor. Just 2, 4, 5 ports for anything. Nitrous, water meth, boost, pressure, anything. And you see, they have that huge cut just like most manufacturers do. And it's okay. With this one, they added a little dimple there to keep the gasket from creeping. Here, they did not include a bolt with this one, so we had to go to the store and get a bolt because we did have a boost leak from there. And the stock one runs straight through the middle there. Now, we measured this one. It is a little bit smaller in diameter as far as circle. This is, I believe, 2.9. Let's see. Yeah, that's right at 2.9. 2.89. So this was 3.0 in here with this. But you got to look at exactly what's going on here. So with this only being off by 1/10 of an inch, or 10 millimeters per se, this little hump is a bit bigger, but you have this entire space in here that is no longer being blocked. And this entire space runs all the way up into the collector here, down here. So you do have some restriction in the eBay, Amazon one, not as much as the stock one, but you do still have some restriction. With this one, you can stick your entire hand in there, literally your whole hand. And as you see, there's nothing blocking it. So it's nothing but pure free flowing there. So those are the major differences of why we think you should dump the stock intake manifold and grid heater. You can just see you will get plenty of more airflow through this thing than you would normally. So we're going to go ahead and put the grid heater onto this and just show you how it looks. All right, as you can see, the stock manifold, intake manifold here on the left, and the new GDP one we're putting on, that's the grid heater. And as you can see, it sits just like the stock throttle valve would. Same position. They are exactly the same as far as bolting up to a stock configuration, stock boost tubes. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up for today, clean everything up, and then we'll get everything back together and see what the real performance gain was. Till next time, thanks for watching. Please subscribe.